Continuing on from last year's Episode 1, Episode 2 aims to please fans this time around with new level designs, improved graphics, and the inclusion of Miles Tails Prowler. But will poor physics, cheap level designs, and lazy decision put a damper on Sega's plans? Unfortunately, Sega learned nothing from last year's Sonic generations and have opted to use the same fan-hated engine from Sonic 4, although they have fixed the rolling physics, so there's a plus. There are still many problems with the formula though. Sonic can still walk up walls and get stuck to surfaces. These physics problems become really apparent when you play the last level of the game where a gravity system has been introduced, and it just seems so broken. Just like most modern Sonic games, Sonic can collect Chaos Emeralds by completing special stages. That is, this time around they bring homage to Sonic 2. Super Sonic is still a complete game breaker, but it's fun to see how high you can get through a level, and it's not like Super Sonic hasn't always been like this. Two new moves have been introduced to the series in the form of the Team Roll and Team Flight. The roll basically just lets Sonic and Tails roll faster and break objects, while the flight mode allows for some interesting level designs. The problem is, most of the levels in this game are downright cheap. Sega still hasn't learned that all of their difficulty can't free from bottomless pits and one-off traps. Some of the levels are downright dickery. I mean, there's several points where you'll just get completely stuck and have to restart the level. There's no other way to pass it. This is poor level design, and it's too bad since you can see a lot of potential from the level ideas, especially Sky Fortress, which is hampered by poor, clunky controls. Also, if you happen to have bought Episode 1, there is a bonus mode where you can play as Metal Sonic through 4 revamped levels from the previous game. It's a nice little mode, and the level design is pretty good except for Mad Gear. Cheap Mad Gear. And leaderboards are back, but it won't take long for them to be hacked again knowing Sega's poor security. Episode 2 can be played like Sonic 2, where a second player controls Tails. This can be done both online and off. In my experience of 5 games, 2 were a bit laggy, but not enough that I had to leave the game. The hard part of multiplayer is actually finding a session to join, but once you do, it becomes really fun to slam through levels and bosses. And of course, there's that fight for the goalpost at the end of every level. Stupid Sonic homing attack. You watch that. You know I would have gotten if he didn't homing attack. I would have got it. I should have won that race. That's bullshit. I'm gonna move on with the review now. Sticking to 16-bit sounding tracks, the game still feels very nostalgic, although this time there has been more focus put on the instrumentation of the tracks rather than just the snare drum. Although I bet you $20 you'll hate that special stage theme for Special Stage 7 after you've played it the 48th time. Goddamn Special Stage 7. It seems the game has received a fresh coat of paint, and because of this, the levels are a lot more inspiring than Episode 1. The background can be a lot more detailed, and you really get a sense of scope and size during some of the later levels. Although those without widescreen TVs may not like this venture as much during boss fights because they take up about 3/4 of the screen. This also makes it really hard to avoid upcoming traps, like this one, which is cheap. Sega, that was cheap and you know it. I'm holding a grudge, it's a cheap game. Cheap. You know, I want to like Sonic 4 Episode 2 because it does improve on the formula from Episode 1. It does make a lot of things right, like platforming in the levels and the great soundtrack. But it still does even more things wrong. Homing attack chains, as well as generally poorly placed badniks over bottomless pits, are not fun, Sega. They have not been fun for 4 years, and they are still not. Get it through your heads. Most people do not like the Rush series level design. Anyway, if this truly is the last in the series, then it's too bad, since you can see Sega starting to learn. Slowly but surely. Sadly, they didn't learn fast enough for the release of Episode 2, and it's plagued with bad physics problems, cheap level design, and the fact that it pulls the biggest ending tease ever. You seriously would think that if there was an achievement that asked you to collect a whole bunch of these collectibles and beat the boss again, that there would be a secret ending. But no. So I can't say whether it's a buy or a pass, because you can't rent it, so you can't try it, but hey, if you got Episode 1, you should probably pick it up, because you get Episode Metal, and that's pretty fun.